Good Sunday morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm your moderator, John Becker, and the Tennessee legislature is back in session. Let's show you what it looked like. This was earlier this week in Nashville. We had a crew there covering a number of issues they're covering, and also a surprise in this session, a special session. We'll get to that momentarily. First, though, let's show you the breakdown, because the more things change, the more they stay the same. The House dominated by Republicans. This is a walkout majority, 75-24, meaning Republicans could do business if every Democrat walked out. The same is true in the Senate. You can see the breakdown here, 27-6. We are joined this morning by Democratic Representative Gloria Johnson of Knoxville. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Always good to have you. Eddie Smith is a Republican, former lawmaker from Knoxville.
Yes, good morning.
And Don Bosch is a Democrat and longtime panelist, runs his own law firm.
Good morning, John.
Good morning. All right, I mentioned it at the top, a special session announced by the governor, not on one specific issue, which is typically what happens, Representative Johnson, but on three. We're talking school vouchers, using more public money to pay for private school scholarships. Also on that list, relief funding for hurricane victims in East Tennessee specifically, and also immigration policies to ensure that the state is compatible with what the Trump administration is coming in with. Explain your initial reaction to hearing this special session called for January 27th.
Well, my initial reaction is it's important to get money to those families in Northeast Tennessee that so desperately need it. So, 1,000% in support of that. My question would be, North Carolina's already had 3 special sessions to take care of that. Why didn't we do that in the last 4 months? Why did we wait until January when Lee's getting closer to the number of votes he needs for vouchers? I think this is, to me, it is political expediency. It's about his agenda and not that of the people. I think that it is insulting to Northeast Tennesseans to make this special session to do with vouchers or immigration when there's no immediacy there. We've been hearing vouchers for the last, 8 years? Where is the immediacy on a voucher bill? There is no immediacy. Why do we need to suspend the rules and pass something incredibly unpopular in 3 days without having people come and testify at the level we need, or without having the debate at the level that we need on something that is so big and can cause so much damage to our budget?
You've articulated it, but I just want to be sure and on record, you feel like the governor is using the hurricane victims as a political pawn to pass vouchers?
Absolutely.
All right, Eddie Smith, your first question.
We talked. So one of the things that you mentioned is that it was extremely unpopular. However, we saw the Beacon poll that came out. Where 65% of Tennesseans are in favor of some type of education savings account to help those families that are stuck in failing schools. So why would you say it's unpopular when poll after poll has been showing that there is actually broad support for something that is limited, so long as, with what I believe is in this legislation, does not harm our K-public schools right now, because it sets a new floor for all of our schools to never go below what they're funded at right now?
Well, what we know is that the Beacon Center is a right-wing think tank funded by the Koch brothers. So, I didn't get into the details of their poll, but what we saw it right here in Knox County. When Knox County folks learn there's going to be a disinvestment in our public schools of $52 million because of vouchers.
Why do you say that? Where does that number come from?
That number comes from, we don't have the full and complete bill yet. It comes from last year's bill, what that would result, what the disinvestment would be for Knox County schools. And so the reality is, it is going to be a disinvestment. Take a Hardeman County. That's a very small county. There's just going to be $2.8 million disinvestment from their public schools. We're talking about it's going to cause the need for a tax increase. It is defunding our public schools, and that is just an absolute fact. And look at Knox County Board of Education, which is a 6-3 Republican Democrat board, but they just removed vouchers from their legislative agenda because it was a bipartisan vote against vouchers. Republicans and Democrats against vouchers in a very conservative county.
I just want to be clear, the governor and supporters say they're going to hold public schools harmless in this. There won't be money taken away from public schools. You dispute that?
That's absolutely not true. There's a one-year situation, but it's still a problem. And nobody is held harmless, because the reality is this money is coming out of public schools. And you know, when you talk about it, you can't say school choice. Parents don't have a choice. The parents of the kids I taught will not be accepted into a private voucher school. They will not.
Or if they are, one might question the validity of that school.
If they are, they will have to sign away their rights to free and appropriate public education under IDEA.
And you're talking about special education students in particular.
That's correct.
Well, Eddie, a minute to make this point. We can continue on this subject.
And let's separate some fact from fiction. And I understand that you're basing everything off of the previous session and the legislation, but House Bill 001 is actually up on the General Assembly website. Anybody can go to capital.tn.gov and look it up, where it actually very clearly lays out section by section, and it actually sets a brand new floor, so it does not remove any money from our public schools as they're funded right now. There's a brand new floor set, so even if disenrollment happens, they cannot go below the level they're at right this minute.
But it is still, there is a disinvestment of millions of dollars, and the 52 million is a low ball estimate. You will see, you can't put 20,000 people on vouchers and it not have an effect. And even if a county does not have a private school, every time someone in Nashville gets a voucher, that takes money out of Hardeman County. That takes money out of Monroe County. And the reality is, if you look online now at the list of schools that are approved, they have added a ton of online schools. Those online schools even have to have a P.O. box in Tennessee. So even if you don't have a private school in your county, your students from your county can go to an online school. And we are talking about complete lack of transparency and accountability. They don't have to teach the same curriculum. They don't have to give the same test. They don't have to hire certified teachers. They can refuse any kid they would like to refuse for any reason or for no reason.
We're going to continue our conversation. More points from Don and Eddie and Representative Johnson when we come back here on Inside Tennessee. Back on Inside Tennessee, talking about the legislative session and a surprise special session that will happen on January 27th. Representative Johnson, your hearing this will be limited to about 3 days.
Probably a week, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is on 3 topics, though. We talked about school vouchers. We also are going to talk about disaster funding for East Tennessee counties and immigration. Don, you had some questions about that.
I do. I sort of find this grouping by the governor calling a session almost laughably insidious. The only thing I can come up with. You take something we absolutely need, and that's relief to the Northeast Tennessee folks. They've been so tragically damaged, their businesses, their homes, their lives, their infrastructure, their ability to just simple basic care. You're right, we should have done this 4 months ago, 3 months ago. North Carolina did a much better job of responding immediately, and no threat of a special session being called for that. Then you group it with the vouchers bill, and as you've said, this is something that's gone on in the normal course of the state legislature for now 8 years, I believe. Is that right?
I think it's close to 8 years.
Yeah, at least 6.
Maybe a little more, a little less.
We were joking off air. 2018. It's like Groundhog Day.
When I got elected in 2014, we were discussing vouchers then. Then it became education savings accounts, and now it's education scholarship.
Right.
Same thing.
And then just to throw a little bit of icing on this rancid cake, we put this immigration boogeyman in it. We want to be compliant with whatever President-elect Trump's policies are going to be. We don't even know what those are because, frankly, they change day by day anyway with this President-elect. And so, but it just puts that little fear factor, frankly, in a state that does not have a meaningful illegal immigration problem. Period. I'm going to say it right now. I'm in the criminal justice system. We just don't see it. Do we have an occasional problem? We do. What do you think of those 3 things? What is the governor trying to do? Because I can see it. I mean, he's trying to leverage scaring people, getting what he wants in his signature bill by way of the educational reform, and then, oh yeah, by the way, we really need to get some money to some folks that need it.
Yeah, it is. It's about scaring people. It's about dehumanizing people. And you know, why can't it just be, why can't we have a special session to do the right thing for Tennessee families that desperately need it? And why don't we go through the regular process for the other things? Why don't we wait and see what the feds say about immigration? Because as you say, that we don't have that problem in Tennessee, and we have laws in the books that take care of lawbreakers. We need a process for immigrants to come to this country the right way. We need a process for people to have a path to citizenship who are doing the right things, but we can already send people back who violate laws. And what more do we need? What we need to do is help Tennessee families. We need to cut the grocery tax. We need to expand pre-K and not bring vouchers to Tennessee.
Eddie, you're the Republican here. You served in the legislature. You've been under a special session. It is unusual to have more than one issue. Fair?
It is. I actually served, when I served, we actually had 3 special sessions, each one with one topic. So it is a unique.
One of the things that the governor needs is rural Republicans to support this plan, this new education savings account, school voucher.
Gee, Northeast Tennessee.
So do you think, would he go into special session without having those numbers?
You know, I'm not going to try and sit here and say that I know the governor's entire thinking or his team's thinking. I will agree with one point that both Gloria and Don have made, which is I think the illegal immigration grouped into this session seems a little odd to me, considering Monday President-elect Trump will just become President Trump. So we won't even have yet a full week of policy before we're trying to pass laws. On the other 2 things, I can see how they go together, especially when you get up into the Northeast Tennessee. A lot of homes were damaged. People have been displaced. Having an opportunity for them to go to a school where they may have been displaced and are living right now would be beneficial to some families. You know, and again, love Gloria and Don to death, but they'll sit here and demonize Republicans all day long that we want to help kids who are in failing schools that are not. It's been generational after generational, and I know they're going to retort back, but the bottom line is this: what the governor's proposed is limited to 20,000 kids. The first 10,000, they have to meet certain poverty thresholds.
$175,000.
So so when you look at that, and that's based on all the federal guidelines and things like that. So there are some things in there to make sure it just doesn't go where it's not intended, but it's meant to help families and especially children who have been failed.
I would suggest it's going to go to a lot of fraudulent schools that are going to pop up.
We have to stop saying that it's going to families, to underserved families, because it's not. And $175,000 is not poverty, and that's where the level is.
We're going to take another quick break on Inside Tennessee. As we go to break, I just want to read directly from the governor's release on public safety element of this legislative session, special session. The Tennessee General Assembly will consider public safety measures related to immigration to ensure the state is prepared for federal policy implementation. Last year, Governor Lee directed key state agencies to begin making preparations and stand ready on day 1 of the Trump administration to support efforts to secure our nation's borders and keep communities safe. That's it. That's all on the immigration piece of this. We're back with more right after this. Back on Inside Tennessee, we'll talk more about vouchers and the other subjects of the special session on January 27th. But Representative Johnson, let's talk about some other rule changes that did catch your eye this week made by the leaders of the House.
Yeah, you know, would they change the bill number? When I first came in, I think it was around 20, I think it was Beth Hardwell, it's sort of at the end of her thing. I might have been out when she changed it to 15. Eddie was there, and she changed it to 15 bills from an unlimited number. So this year, initially, they were going to set it at 10, but now they've set it at 12 the first year of the two-year session and 10 the second year. The problem being, what Democrats will say is it's like cutting our mics, because these are the ideas that we get to talk about. And you also have every committee chair gets 5 extra bills, and subcommittee chairs gets 2 or 3 extra bills.
No Democrats.
Right, so no Democrats are going to get any extra bills. We asked for extra bills for our leadership. They said no. There are bills that come from the administration or bills that come from the constitutional officers. They might have 20 bills in a session. They will go to Republican members, and it won't count against their bill numbers.
There are new decorum rules as well. Explain a couple that stand out to you.
Yeah, well, you get put in timeout if you're out of order. And what we saw in the last 2 years were every time a Democrat said the word racism, they were called out of order. And the supermajority has the ability to vote in favor of that out of order call. However, if a Republican gets called out of order, 24 votes is not going to make them get dinged for being out of order, even if they were, because their members are going to side with them. So it's something that only Democrats are going to get dinged for. And so if you get out of order, then you've got to go to timeout somewhere by yourself and vote remotely. And then there's the situation where if someone in the gallery was to say something out loud from the gallery, they can be put out for 2 years. And that seems extreme. The way it's worded is if it's detrimental to the business. If somebody yells out a word, it's not detrimental. It doesn't stop the business. They need to be gavelled down and asked to be quiet. But to be put out for 2 years or, something extreme seems a little much.
One last question, Eddie, before we have to go to our talk around.
What do you want to see accomplished? Forget the special session. Let's go to the regular session. You got about 4 months, probably a limited budget. What are some things you would love to see that you're carrying yourself this year?
Yeah, I think more like 3 months now, because we're already out of January before we come back in. So it's kind of a wild month. We talked about that because we didn't start till the 14th. But I want to see things like the grocery tax cut, but I want to see it cut so that we're accounting for the dollars that we're using for that. And the Democrats have a great bill. Rep Bain and Rep Oliver have a bill that pays for the groceries tax, sales tax cut. I would like to see pre-K expanded instead of vouchers, so that every child who needs that extra help and extra push can start school at a young age, and not just those who are wealthy. I want to see some of the family leave extended and paid family leave. I want to see that happen. But there's so much that we can do for Tennessee families. I want to see the wage raised. You can't live on $7.25 an hour. And so people are struggling to keep the lights on, keep food on the table. And folks in rural counties, they're losing their hospitals. Those are some of the best jobs, and it's hard in a rural county to replace those jobs. And so I want to see us raise the wage. Everybody of all parties agrees on raising the wage. What they don't agree on is what you raise it to. I'm flexible there. We know that a living wage in Tennessee is $20 an hour. And MIT living wage calculator is great to show you exactly what that pays for. But I've had a spectrum of wages, but we've got to raise the wage. Tennessee families working hard, 40 hours a week plus, deserve to earn a living wage to support their families.
Representative Johnson, thanks for running it down. We'll talk more about it in our talk around. Best of luck to you in this session, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you guys.
Thank you.
We're back right after this. Back on Inside Tennessee with Eddie Smith and Don Bosch. Eddie, the Republican here, he's been in the legislature, and rural Republicans will be key to passing this in the special session if the governor really wants his voucher package passed. What are you going to watch for?
And that is true, because one of the things that's always never been in there that I've advocated for years is we've got to hold the public schools harmless. If they truly do that, and there is no funding loss for any public schools, there's a new floor set, I think that you may be looking at a new bill passed. But what I will recommend everybody is go online to capitol.tn.gov, read the bills yourself. Don't listen to Facebook or some talking head on Twitter. Read it for yourself to understand what they're actually doing in the legislature.
Don, you were about to make a point before Representative Johnson left about the last special session, and Governor Lee didn't exactly get what he wanted.
No, the last special session was about guns, and it was right after the tragedy in Nashville with, I guess it was Covenant, that was the name of the school. And at best, it was lip service to some gun stuff, and frankly, empowered some other pro-gun interests with what happened. So Governor Lee, that session was a total failure for what Governor Lee professed he wanted to do. This session is far more insidious because, just as you mentioned, rural areas, just like Northeast Tennessee, have historically been against the voucher program because they really don't have the means and ways to do that. And now they may be forced to hear, gee, I don't know what we'll be able to do for you and for your communities if you don't support us in this voucher thing. Very, very poor choice politically and optics-wise to tie these two things together.
Let's move to other bits of politics because we got some news this week of sorts, and we want to go to a picture that says a lot. This is Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs along with Senator Marsha Blackburn, and this is essentially an endorsement you're seeing here if she does indeed run for governor. And one of our affiliates caught up with Glenn Jacobs this week, and he told them, I was never going to run for governor. Well, I was thinking about it, but Senator Blackburn looks like she's going to do that, and I will support her if she chooses so. What do you make of this development, Don?
Well, I think the cards have all been dealt here. I think Marsha Blackburn would be the presumptive favorite to be Tennessee's first female governor, Republican governor. She has expressed quietly to others that she's not thrilled with being in the Senate right now. I'm not sure who would be. Certainly Bill Hagerty talked about doing this, but I think conversely, she'll resign from her Senate seat, and lo and behold, we're going to see Glenn Jacobs appointed to that Senate seat.
Let's talk about those logistics, though. How might that work? Because there's talk that perhaps Republican leaders would wait until she made it through a primary to ensure that she indeed was the Republican nominee. Does that sound right?
No, because I think if she resigns immediately after the primary, then the governor by law would have to, there would be a special election to fill that seat. So if she were going to resign, I would say she would need to wait till after the November election, because then whoever the governor would appoint.
I think it's within 120 days of the next election. So I think if Blackburn were to win the Republican primary and it's within 120 days, they then wait till the next schedule. I don't think it's immediate. I could be wrong. But.
And again, that's where I think, it's unique, so it's something that hasn't happened in my memory. So I think we would all be trying to figure out exactly how they would do this.
I don't know. It has. The last time I recall, of course, is when Senator Gore became Vice President Gore, and Harlan Matthews was appointed by a Democratic governor. And but as I recall there, it was right at swearing in, essentially, and it wasn't at the change of a governorship, so that was a little different.
One of the conversations that people have had this week is an executive job versus a job where you're a part of a group of lawmakers. Sometimes those executive jobs where you say, I see this, let's do this, are more appealing.
Yeah, I think being one of one is a lot more appealing right now than being one of 100, or gosh forbid, one of 435. Is that right?
One of 435 in the House.
Right.
And again, it's about what do you want to do with what time you've got left in public service, and looking at a governorship where you can affect real policy change, do things to help fix the state that you've been in, that you've supported for all these years, versus staying in Washington, D.C. and really the swamp, where they're not getting a lot done up there.
Even Republicans are feeling that way, Don.
No question, and particularly in the Senate where you have the filibuster rule where you need 60, and one party is not going to reach 60 members of their own party, so it is difficult to get much done. And I don't want to be governor anywhere except maybe the state of Becker.
All right, Don Bosch, Eddie Smith, we appreciate the conversation. As always, we appreciate you watching. Thanks for tuning in to Inside Tennessee. If you've missed our conversations in the past, you can go right to our webpage and see past conversations with guests right here on Sunday morning. Have the best rest of your weekend, and we hope to see you here next week on Inside Tennessee.